surveys are a really important tool for conducting research. Basically, we use a survey to measure something. So we have an idea, a concept, something out there that we're seeing, a phenomena of some sort that we want to measure. And so we want to understand what it is to a person's experience or what it is in terms of meaning to a person or a group of people. So if you're doing a survey, you're probably doing some quantitative research. That's the tradition surveys typically come from. If you're doing qualitative research, or if the answers you want to get from an individual are more narrative-based, they're more text-based, then you're probably not doing a survey. You're probably doing an interview guide of some sort, and that's a different video for a different time. This one's going to be focusing on surveys. So when you think about surveys, you need to be thinking about quantitative data. So the output of a survey is a number of some sort. Output of individual questions are going to be a number of some sort. And that's a really important differentiation between surveys and interviews. So let's talk about surveys. More or less the advice I have for scholars that are approaching surveys maybe from the first time or who are kind of early in their careers, when it comes to surveys, see if there's something out there that somebody has already used in terms of a survey. See if there's a research out there that has used a standardized survey instrument that you can use for your research. Because chances are, even if the survey instrument's been out there for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that there's still new ways of using it, new populations to use it on, new ways of understanding the outputs of that survey. Or there's always opportunities to replicate research that has happened before. So if research has been conducted 10 years ago, you can replicate that research on a similar population to see if that survey still holds up, to see if the data still holds up, or to see if there's any kind of contradictions with that previous research. So first step of doing survey research is always, I would say, go out there and see if there's a survey that exists. Now that can be a little bit difficult because a lot of times when there's published academic papers and they say they use a survey instrument, they don't specify what survey instrument they use. They just kind of generally say we use the survey to do this, this, and this, or to measure this, this, and this. And that's often not enough for you to know what survey they actually used. And sometimes they don't even name the survey at all ever in the use of their survey instruments. So then you can't really access whatever that survey was. Now, if a survey instrument has been used repeatedly in literature, chances are that it'll have some specific name to it. And it's often a weird kind of academic-y name, and it'll be kind of some kind of questionnaire or some instrument or some other. And so you just need to look and see if in a few of the articles you're reading, it specifies, oh, this is the survey instrument that was used. Sometimes there's like a numeric code to it of some sort or an alphanumeric code to it. And so just look for that. And if you find it, you're probably not going to find necessarily the whole survey in the article, but if you find the name of that survey, then you can go out into Google or another search engine and just search for that name and see if that will turn up. Search it in Google Images and then PDF downloads and just see what might be out there that you could access, that then you have that survey instrument and you can use. Now, a note here to kind of keep an eye on is that a lot of times survey instruments are copyrighted by a specific author, and they will license that survey to you if they have that licensing as an option or has it available kind of online. So you may not always get that survey instrument for free. You may actually have to pay some sort of license fee for that survey instrument, but most of the times you can find them for free because academics typically want to give out that sort of information so that people can build off of their research. So if you found a nice little survey instrument that people have used before that's kind of been validated in some way, shape, or form, or that there's a research tradition that has used that survey instrument, great. Maybe use that survey instrument and use it on a different population, or use it to actually investigate the specific issue that you're investigating. Again, replicating previous research or finding a new direction to take and use that survey. But it's important that you do try to see what is out there, because that can help inform what you end up doing, because then you know, oh, this has already been tried in this way. The researchers have already tried to measure this topic or issue in this way, and then that will give you some guidance even if you decide to create your own survey. Now, if you decide to create your own survey, approach this process with caution, especially if you're an early stage researcher or academic. chances are it's going to take a hell of a lot longer than you imagine that it will take. And the reason for that is that a lot of early stage researchers just think it's just a matter of me sitting down, writing a whole bunch of questions, and then going out and surveying a population. But there's two really huge variables in there, which is you writing those questions and writing them in a way that you can have some reassurance that they're actually measuring the thing that you want to measure, and that you're going to actually go out there and be able to get a certain population of people to respond to that survey. Both of those things are fraught with challenges and difficulties, and again, approach with caution. So if you do decide to go down this road, first of all, make sure that you're pilot testing your survey instrument. So don't just write a whole bunch of questions, go and put it out there to the survey population, get your results, and then spit out your analysis, because chances are there's going to be some way that you've worded something that some people are not going to understand. Chances are the things that you thought you were going to try to measure are not necessarily what people are responding to. And so what you're doing is going to be biased in some way, shape, or form, which is going to create a bias in your results. So pilot testing helps to control and eliminate some of that bias, because then you write a shorter set of survey questions, put it out to a smaller survey population, try to understand what their responses are and whether or not that's matched to the ideas, issues, topics you want to measure, and also that they're interpreting the language that you're using in the way that you intend that they interpret it. So this is an important thing. The other kind of key issue here is the specific issues that you want to measure. So when you're designing that first pilot survey instrument, make sure that you actually sit down and think about what are maybe 3 things that I'm trying to measure here. What are 3 key issues or 3 key ideas that I want to measure this population on? And then when you have those 3 key ideas, then break each of those ideas into 4 or 5 questions, so that you're asking questions that pertain to that specific measure or metric or whatever you want to call it, criteria. That can really help make sure that what you think you're measuring is what you're actually measuring, because in those 5 questions, now you have a spectrum of ways in which you're asking the respondents to reply to that overarching metric or measure. Hopefully this is making sense. The other kind of key issue here, especially for early stage researchers, is to use a Likert scale. Likert scales are really basic and really easy to use. 5-point scale, and you can do, always never scales, or, on a scale of 1 to 5, rank this, that, or the other thing. These are really important ways of measuring, because they get the interpretive judgment of an individual, and they give the individual a chance to respond in a number of different ways, and not just a dichotomous yes or no response. The other thing I think researchers will often fall into is they ask more than one question in a question. So they'll ask a question, they'll say and then they'll ask a second question, all packed up into one question. Avoid that, one question per question, quite literally. And then validate that survey. So once you've taken and measured that pilot study, you may want to go and do some qualitative interviews and see if the survey instrument that you used is actually matching what the participants think of those ideas, that your ideas match what their ideas are. So that way you can make sure that that survey instrument's solid. Once you have that, then you can roll it out to a larger population and make that measure with some assurance that what you intend to measure is actually what is being measured. Now, you're never going to be able to make 100% assurance here, but it'll at least give you some control over the risk that there is some misinterpretation or misunderstanding about what you're trying to do and what they actually think you're doing. So 3 things here. Number 1, if you're doing survey research, or if you're choosing to do survey research, make sure, first of all, that it matches your research question, your research aim, your research topic. So if your topic is one thing and your research question is another thing, and then you use the survey to try to match that, but there's not an alignment there, then make sure that that's fixed. Either fix your aims and fix your research questions, or go the other way around and fix your methodology to match those research question, research aims. That's number 1. Number 2, if you're still doing quantitative research at this point and you want to do a survey, make sure you try to use a survey that's already been used. So go out, see if there's a validated survey instrument. If there isn't, for whatever reason, then you can go forward and create your own. If you're creating your own, and this is the 3rd piece of advice here, pilot test that survey instrument so you can make sure that it's measuring what you intend to measure.